will open on March 12th. The first of these installations is visible behind us. It's entitled No Justice, No Peace, and it's almost, we're working on the final end of that installation today. And the second one is really an exceptional piece. It's going to be fabricated using 4 of the columns in the gallery. And it's entitled Essential Workers. And Heather is just going to be working along and during this hour. And if you would like to speak to her, through the chat room, Kate will be happy to voice your questions to her. I'm also going to be in conversation with Heather as we go along. But really feel free at any moment during this hour to ask a question, interject, or just have a conversation with us. Thank you so much.
This is Juliana Christie. All right, I'm going to sit on.
Yeah.
Should we tilt it? You want to
Okay.
tilt it?
Yeah.
I'm going to sit down here and work away. That'll do.
So this is just one side of this design that is based on the term essential worker. And there are actually 4 different works in the exhibition, in Shift Happens, that are entitled Essential Worker. There are 2 paintings, a drawing, and the installation on these 4 columns, which are kind of in the center of our 5,000 square foot gallery space.
think it would help if I put on my glasses.
I'm not sure what this is doing.
You know, I
It's giving us a
The
message.
work that we see now,
This up.
the work
Now, will it just come from the computer, yeah? I'm gonna try and move this up just a little bit closer so we can see those lines that you're
what
working with.
section is this? How many sections will there be of this work?
now see in this part, I don't remember what direction the lines go.
Uh-huh.
You know, this is when I would refer back to my drawing. I'm pretty sure that they go this way. That would make sense to me, because they would come 90 degrees from this line. That's my guess.
Uh-huh.
Now also, typically a design would extend either, you know, horizontally or vertically. And if I did the lines this way, I wouldn't be able to find that path to glory. So I'd have to go this way. So I'm going to go that way.
I'm gonna try to find your drawing for you.
I bet I'm right about it, but of course, you know, I love to tear the tape out though too.
So Heather,
Yeah.
Gail Simon has a question, and the question is, how many sections will this be? I think they're referring to the column that you're
Yeah.
taking on.
There's four facings. Each one is 24 inches wide. So I have a couple of ways that I do this. I've got a small tiny drawing. Edie's looking to scare that up right now. A very tiny one that shows me the way all of the stripes travel from facet to facet and connect throughout the entirety of the design. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Essential worker. And so as you can see, each one, there's columns. There's four faces. And then over here behind me, look, I'm going to tilt it oh so slowly to not make you all sick. You see on the ground back there, back here, this one is column B. This is the column that I'm taping out right now. So I've taken this tiny drawing and looked at column B and made a really big drawing for it. That's the actual size. It's the actual size of the column itself. So then all I have to do is, well, I had this brilliant idea that completely failed. I decided I would use a pounce wheel on my drawing that's actual size and, perforate it, and then use a quilting tool, that has the chalk in it to kind of go through the little holes, and it would, leave me a beautifully drawn, perfectly drawn pattern on the wall. But it didn't work for two reasons. The holes weren't big enough, and then of course I wasn't thinking ahead about putting chalk all over a wall I'm about to put tape on. So that wasn't really brilliant. But I tried it, and that feels really good to know that it might work in some other scenario, just not this one. So what I did then is I took the drawing, and because it's accurate, and then I poked holes, like imagine like a little hole punch, right where all the intersections are, so that I ended up with little dots all over my front facing, my B column here. And then I just, connected the dots according to the way it was in the drawing, and then used my little drawing that gives me all my tape directions. And then, of course, if it's all right, if I do it right, which, I don't often, if I do it right, theoretically, when I get all the way around to the other side, these tape marks are going to line up with the ones on the other side, which will be a neat trick. So what I did to help myself with this, because the facings are not all the same width, they're anywhere from 21.5 to 23 inches wide, and they do vary a little bit in height, and some have molding and some do not at the top. So there have some variations. So what I did to offset the disaster that could happen later is I eliminated the outer edges, you see. So when this wraps all the way around, which it will, you got to kind of imagine it like a tube. You see, nothing has to actually connect. I'll have this lovely vertical empty white stripe is what I'm hoping for. And that does not have to be of any specific configuration. It can just be some snaky empty space, and thereby complete the entirety of the column with little effort and lots of room for making mistakes. Does that answer your question? It's nice to see you, Gail. I'm seeing you for the first time. Everybody stay 6 feet away from me. I should know about this column design, that it's meant to rotate on each one, so that when you come into the gallery, you can see all 4 columns. There's about 80 feet of distance here, and the columns are spaced, I don't know, about 12 feet apart, I'd guess, in this space, somewhere like that. And so along the front faces, I'll have column A, column B, column C, column D, so that you can see the entirety of the pattern on the front faces only, which means that every column has to rotate, right? So on that first one, it'll start with column A, then go to B, C, and D. This one starts with column B, and then we'll go to C, D, and then A, right? So everything is rotating just one time.
So Juliana Christie has a question. She says, "Hi Heather, so inspired by your creations. Thank you for this event. Will you talk about your thoughts about essential workers and the connection between that idea and what you're creating? And why columns for this piece?
Oh, all the good questions. And hello, Juliana. Oh my God. Hi. Wow. It's been a long time. That's a great question. A couple of questions. So why essential workers, we're moving the camera here. Hold on. There we go. Essential workers, and let me back up and talk about the columns. This space used to be the Greensboro News and Record. Yeah, this used to be where the newspaper was, and it's a very old building that has still the original plaster, beautiful moldings up around the ceilings, really, really lovely. And these columns are all right down the center of the space. This used to be where the printing presses were. And largely when we talked about looking at this space and what could we do in this 5,000 square feet, Edie was mentioning that only one time had somebody done something with the columns. And so I thought, well, you know, I like to do the thing that doesn't get done, try it anyway. And so, and it really, if you don't deal with the columns in this space, you have to ignore them. Because they're right in the middle of the space. And so it occurred to me that they're a lot like essential workers. You know, they're holding everything up and, you know, we're pretending that they're invisible. So I decided that rather than do that, I would wrap them in this bright, lovely gold vinyl tape, which I'm not sure it comes through on the digital space there, but here in the gallery, it looks a lot like gold leaf has been applied to these columns. And so in this way, I'm trying to do two things. I'm trying to make something that's been invisible, visible, and give it the value. The second thing is to give it the value that it deserves, you know, essential workers. I mean, my life does not exist without them. My safety doesn't exist without them. And I've also had to, you know, just as an artist during this time, really had to grapple with whether or not I am an essential worker or not. The government does not see me as an essential worker. And the funding that has come to the arts from the government, if you look at other countries and what they've done for arts organizations and artists, we are not, you know, we are not competing. So that tells me that, you know, you put money where you think there's value. And that is a concerning thing to find yourself in a pandemic wanting to make art and questioning whether or not it's even valuable. And of course, we know that it is valuable because art has been ever present all the way through the pandemic. You know, even from like just simple graphic designers, you know, like web designers, these are creative people, whether or not you consider them to be artists or not. I mean, I did that work for many years. A lot of our world doesn't happen without them right now. Or how about my Amazon guy that's bringing me my Amazon Fresh order at 7 a.m. in the morning, you know, and didn't take the tip I left. And it's amazing to me that I'm able to live in safety, but also am grappling with this cognitive dissonance about whether or not I'm contributing anything of value. So this is probably why I've got 4 pieces in the show named Essential Worker, because it's just it's an endless thing that keeps sticking in your mind. You know, it's in the news so often. You know, and your thoughts and feelings about a subject might change over time, and mine have just over the 9 months I've been making this work. Thank you for that question. It was a good question.
Jane Cheek is asking, so with this piece, is the pattern the same on each column but rotated?
Exactly. Yes.
I had a question. Have you done an installation in the round like this on 4 sides?
Yes,
And the freestanding. What do
not,
you-
not a column, but I did do a van, a really big, like, well, like an Amazon van. Exactly,
Oh.
exactly like an Amazon van, except it was for Contech in Durham. And trying to apply these folded shapes onto convex and concave surfaces is a nightmare. My God. And when I got to the top of the van and it was that corrugated surface on the top, I mean, I just wanted to give up at that point. Trying to make something look straight when it's going across a thing that's going like that, that's difficult. And in fact, we ran into that problem. I've had the worst example of that has happened to me on No Justice, No Peace. I've got, 96 feet of it complete with no trouble at all, and got to the last corner, and there's, in the pattern itself, there's a complexity of folds that are happening, which directs the lines, but it ends up landing at the very top where there's a ceiling, and then the point has to fold into that corner and then up for the front face. And I'm telling you what, it has burned my noodle. And so Edie finally found the solution, which was to just, she like said, well, just squish it down. And really, okay, so what happens when you do that? So I took her idea about this. So I changed one angle, and when I changed one angle, that then requires me to change 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more angles in order to accommodate it, which is okay. But it's never, these patterns are more like springs. They're skeletons where everything is connected. So you can't just add on or eliminate and think that it's all that the tapey goodness is gonna last. It isn't. You have to make adjustments all throughout that area of the design. It's a wonderful problem for a person like myself. It's kind of like a crossword puzzle, and you can't get the last solution. That's what's happening to me right now, but I'm gonna get it.
So Juliana Christie says, I'm curious to hear you speak about how it feels differently to create with different materials. So tape on walls versus paint on canvas. And what do you think brought forth from you depending on materials?
What was the last part of it?
What do you think is brought forth from you depending on your materials?
Oh, I get you. Okay, well, when I'm doing a tape installation, there's a lot of other people involved. Typically, Edie's got to let me in, and there's other people here that help me on occasion to get up on ladders, and we've got a baker's rack in here. So, and there's a public coming in a lot. So that's and I work with tape too, which is you don't really have to have a lot of skills to use this material. So here, there's a lot of prep work done in my studio before I ever get to the wall. I came here and I took very detailed measurements, because if it's off a 1/4 of an inch, it'll make a difference to me. Maybe not in a small piece, but it will when it runs down the wall. And I found this out the hard way, unfortunately. So I made one site visit and did a really careful measurement, did a drawing, did a mock-up in a digital program, and then came here and had some help to draw it, and all that stuff, lots of people. Whereas if I'm working in my studio, then I'm dealing with just myself and my own thoughts in my head, and I can have multiple pieces going at the same time, which I have a studio that allows me to do that. So I might be working on 4 or 5 paintings simultaneously, and if I get frustrated with one, I can move to another. There's lots of time. I work in oils, so there's lots of layering, many layers that get added, and then they have to dry, and then I do another one, and then it has to dry. And with tape, you put it up, it's there, and it stays there until you take it off. It's immediate, but it's also temporary, because it is meant to come off. These pieces are in time and in space for only a little while. And then when the show is over, it'll, all come down to a big ball of tape, which is pretty close to how it arrived, like that's a tape installation. It's just not in the right configuration. But when I'm doing painting, I'm falling back more on my own technical skills of being a painter for, I'm trying to think of how long I've been painting. It's over 30 years. And I love painting, and I read a great deal about painting and the technicalities of painting and the techniques of painting, all from, as far back as it will go, not just about oil painting, but all kinds of painting. And that's a wonderful world of experimentation and unending relationship to a fluid, responsive material that you're going to put on a surface of some kind. And it's very flexible. It's forgiving in the way that tape is forgiving, but it's everlasting. Well, I mean, it might as well be everlasting. It lasts longer than I live. So it might as well be eternity at that point, because I won't be here to know. But so those things last forever. And when you're making those, you have a sense that they're different. When I make a painting, I think about somebody having it in their lives at some point, something that they have that they live with in their home, or maybe a gift to someone else of great importance. It becomes an heirloom of some kind, a thing that you remember the time in your life when you acquired that piece. And I mean, I have that relationship with pieces of art that I've collected from other people. And I think that many collectors feel this way when they buy art and collect it and live with it in their homes. So I don't know if I answered the question, but probably more than answered it, maybe, or not succinctly and too much. I don't know. Yes.
Dorothy Basin asks, the use of tape creates geometric works. When you're painting, do you work geometrically?
Yes, I do. I haven't always, but I do. I typically start a canvas, especially these days, I'd say within the last, at least I'm going to say for the 20 pieces that are in this show. How about that? For the paintings that were made for the show, I started with an exercise to eliminate the white. When I have to address a fully white, pristine, beautifully stretched and prepared canvas, it just freaks me out. So I have to mess it up right off the bat. I used to put them on the ground and walk over them. I don't do that anymore, but I do just take a color, any color that I feel intuitively drawn to, make a giant wash out of it and just spew it all over the canvas and just get something there. And then from there, everything is pretty rigid for me. I do a lot of projection of my patterns, but instead of just doing one, like this is one single pattern that you're seeing. But in my paintings, what I'm doing is doing multiple layers of this. But I'm going to do something different with the pattern. So I'm going to project the pattern onto the canvas and I'm going to draw the lines. That's step one. Then I'm going to take my projector and I'm going to flip the image and I'm going to draw it again. Then I'm going to flip it this way and I'm going to draw it again. And then I'm going to flip it around and draw it again. So I might do that. Well, I have one painting in the show that there's 19 times I did that. And so what you end up with is, it's essential worker, right? Exactly. You end up with 19 layers that are each precisely delineated, but because there are so many of them, and the depth of them, you can't perceive any one of them. It's a lot like essential workers. Each one is an individual person that is in danger of becoming hidden, unseen, or replaceable in some way. And I think that's a really unfortunate view that seems to come out in policy sometimes. So I'm saying, no, it's not like that. It's a group of individual people that are doing this stuff every day for whatever reason they're doing it. And it becomes a safety net of protection. And so for all of these paintings that I've done, not just essential worker, there you see this over and over again, where there's these multiple layerings of the pattern to just complicate the idea that you might think that because the pattern is mathematically driven and very specific, that it might contain some sort of critical knowledge that you're going to glean from it. But it doesn't. It has specificity, but does it have meaning? One static meaning? I don't think it does. And I love that about painting, but I don't ask of my tape works to achieve that level of longevity. I mean, they're not going to be around long enough. I don't know that anybody would even think about them that long, because it's going to be gone in a couple of months.
When you said the term safety net, does geometry, has that always been a safe place for you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it sure is. Yeah, I remember my father teaching me about ratios. I mean, I'd learned about them in school, but my dad knows how to apply these things. And so when I started seeing how you could use a ratio, and then my mom taught me about percentages and how you can really apply that in the real world. And then one trick I use all the time is how to determine if something's square. For a painter, this is hugely important. If you're building a stretcher, especially a large one, it's hard to know if it's square. You know that the sides are the same, but it could be like, you could have a parallelogram. So, you measure from corner to corner, and then you measure from the other corner, and if they match, you're square. That is an elegant, simple to remember solution that has saved my bacon over and over again. And I love that there's something that simple that is hard to forget that will help me when I need help. And geometry does that. It's predictable. It gives you the same solution every time. And it's not confusing when it gives you the answer. It's not going to say, well, this is an answer that works sometimes, but not always. No, it works always, at least in this three-dimensional universe that we're in, that we're experiencing when we're conscious and awake. I mean, I suspect it's much more than that, but right here, for the purposes of making a painting, that works all the time. I love that. Arithmetic does the same thing, or an algebraic equation, same thing. I mean, there's all kinds of unknowns out there in the world, and you can apply math to those things and get an answer, some answer. Is the answer true? Well, I don't know, but you could logically reason out why an answer that you've given is truth in that moment. And there's something really wonderful about being able to say, no, I'm absolutely sure about that fact. That's a real one. It's observable and it's replicatable. So I can trust that. And I like to know where true north is. True north, what is that? It seems like everything just is swirling around, but it's swirling around the true north. So I'm on the lookout for things that are like that.
I think we'd all like to know where true north is these days.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I have the same, that's something that happens in my drawings too. Because when you've got, something this small and it has to go that big, back behind this column is the 96 footer, but the drawing was this size. So, how do you do that? And how do you get it up on the wall and make it look the same or close enough? And one of the things I found is that you got to find the true north. And there's always a true north in something, because my drawings assume that if it's a 10-foot ceiling, it's a 10-foot ceiling all the way down the run. But if you've worked at all with buildings at all, that, ceilings kind of go like this and things kind of, they're off. Nothing is really measurable in that way. You can't depend on it. So what I look for is a true north, which is always in a corner somewhere. So on this one, it was at the far end, and and it was up in a certain particular, it was like a coordinate. And that's where it is. And when I start from there, I'm choosing where that is and I stick it there. And then everything just kind of runs from that. But without the true north, if I have to guess from a starting point, that's not measurable and confirmable, I often get into mistakes, into areas that are just right. I end up having to redo the whole drawing. Many times that's happened.
Well, that might, going back to the previous question about the difference between your media, the tape and a painting. When you say you'd have to just take it down and, take the tape down and restart a given sequence if you've made a measurement that's not correct.
Right.
That seems to be different than, you give yourself more freedom with the painting. And,
Yeah.
and that really in the painting, it seems like you're working with multiple systems, that you're almost playing with them, overlaying them, and whereas with the tape installation, the design, once it's decided on, it's just carried through the space. We might run into corners
Yes.
and, roadblocks. And as you mentioned, an architecture that doesn't comply with what we thought, certain measurements were.
Mm-hmm.
But the rules don't change as you go along.
Right. Right. But in the painting, they can be
You can
more,
add a rule.
they can be more fluid. Yeah, I can add a rule. I do typically feel like, I don't know where the paintings are going. Of course, I don't really know where the tape installations are going either, but I have a sense of they typically look a lot like the drawings. I'm never really surprised. Whereas with the paintings, I'm constantly surprised. Every time I go into the studio for another work session, I have to sit and take a look at it and let it tell me what it wants. And, I have to care for it. And, I have to be quiet and be meditative so that I can hear what it's telling me that it needs. Whereas with the tape installations, they just want to be done. They don't really talk to me much. They just want me to put the tape on the wall. They don't want me to think, or feel or anything like that. They just want to exist and run. And I'm just merely the conduit for it. With the paintings, I have a little bit more, it's actually kind of like the project that we're having, that we're doing here called How Do You Feel? The paintings are asking me how I feel. They're telling me what they want to be about. They're telling me how they want me to do it. But but I also feel that the conversation I'm having with the painting is allowing me to have my own sort of energy into the work. And it's moving with me more like a partner would move, that would be have concern for me, would say, although it also doesn't say, oh, you don't feel good today? Oh, well, you don't have to work on me today. No, it never does that. It always insists that I work, but with the tape paintings, the tape drawings, they're just, it could be somebody else. Like I could just do the tape works by just making directions and handing them off to somebody else in very Solowit fashion, just give them to someone else. And I think they'd be just as happy with or without my participation. But the paintings, those are uniquely from me. I don't know that those are reproducible even by myself, because I don't remember. I go in such a deep, dark wood on them. There's so many different layers. I don't remember what I did, 7 layers ago. That might have been 3 months ago. I have no sense of it.
It's almost like the difference between a map and a travel log.
Yeah, maybe so, yeah.
You've often used the comparison of a map for the installations, whereas the paintings, it seems like there's a whole story also that enters into it.
perhaps more.
And they take longer to make too. Even the biggest of the tape installations doesn't take any more than 2 weeks. Whereas a painting, even a really small one, might take, 3 to 6 months. And it's being born along with many others at the same time. And they influence each other in the studio. And right now I'm working with a lot of fluorescent colors. And when the morning light comes in my studio and hits one wall that has nothing but yellow, bright yellow fluorescent, they reflect light everywhere. And my whole studio goes bright yellow for about an hour when the sun's coming in just in this one way. And it's a big place. It's like 38 feet by 19. It's big and just like a big yellow bomb in there. And so I have to either cover my windows or wait for an hour because those few paintings are screaming so loud that I can't work on the pink ones because now they look orange. Because these others are screaming out, which, it's like unruly children, that are in my family, in my studio, as opposed to like the tape works that never exist in my studio, ever. They're always in someone else's space, not in my own. It gets so quiet. It's weird not being able
Oh,
to hear.
sorry. I didn't know I was muted. Sorry. Jane Cheek has a question, and she's asking, do you also use tape to achieve the lines in your paintings? And was that the inspiration for your installations?
No, actually, it's the opposite. I have done tape on a canvas one time, and it's in the show, and it's called Unless, and it's based on the Dr. Seuss book, The Lorax, and the pattern was developed using forestry data from Duke Forest Archives. And for that painting, I really wanted to try something different. And because I was first thinking about the layers and how can I get these layers? What's that gonna look like? I don't know. So, you try some things. And so what I tried was putting a bunch of tape down. I taped out the whole painting, and then I used it as a block out to then do a wash of color over the top, let that dry up a little bit, and then I took all the tape off. And then I proceeded to build up the painting from there, just using that taping session early on as a guide to set the pattern. And I kind of had mixed results with it. I felt it felt really rigid to me in a way that putting the tape on the wall does. And I think I kind of walked away feeling like I don't want to mix that with this. It's like I don't want peanut butter in my chocolate. So I don't think I'll do it again, but I do still paint in stripes and I draw in stripes, but I like to vary the width a lot, and tape doesn't offer a whole lot of variation. You can get 1/8, 1/4, 1/2 inch, up to like 2 inches, but you can't get, there's not a lot of variation in between 1/4 and 1/16 of an inch. And I really like to live in that space a lot, especially on drawings. So stripes exist, but not necessarily tape. Although I have taped out my car because I think that's interesting. So I got tape on my car. But other than that, no. Can you read that question that just came up? I didn't see all of it. Hello.
Okay, can you read the next question?
Here she's coming.
Heather, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'll read you the question. What is this experience like for you? How does it feel to be witnessed, to receive these questions? What would you most like us to know, witness through this experience?
Yeah. Well, it's validating. It's validating because I've felt like an unessential worker. And so personally, it's validating. And I'm really happy that that you all have shown up today, and that people have shown up yesterday and the day before, and that there's so many people here at the gallery that are busting their humps along with me to get this done, and because they give a shit about it, because it's valuable, not because they think I'm awesome, but because they think art is awesome, and that is all kinds of hopeful to me, all kinds of hopeful, because there's got to be more people like this out there that want to make art and want to show art and show up for things like this, and so that makes me feel hopeful. It's also like, and also on the other side of the coin, it's very meta to be here making art and I'm seeing the art in the picture. I mean, everything is so self-referential now. This difference between the real world and the physical world, and now these digital spaces that we're having to accept. We have to accept them because this is where art is going to happen, or at least be talked about or thought about, and it doesn't feel natural, and not in the slightest. But neither does anything new. It never feels it feels unfamiliar. So okay, well, I can deal with unfamiliar. Bring it on. Fine. The whole year's been unfamiliar. See, like this moment right now is weird. Like, should I be taping? Because I'm supposed to be taping. Or should I be waiting are you thinking out there? I don't know, because I can't see your faces. I can't hear you. I'm a very intuitive person. And when I'm with people, I can get a sense of them and what their emotions are. And I find this very difficult. I don't, clinical. It has a clinical feeling to it that is sterile. And I don't like that. What was that question?
Amanda is asking, she says, it seems quiet there. Do you typically have music playing? What is your taping vibe?
Well, if I had my way, it would be extremely loud in here with lots of noise, with very loud music. But also, I'm not alone here. This isn't my house. So Edie is trying to write. She works with words, and I don't. And when I have to, I can't stand sounds going on. So especially like some annoying true crime podcast, which was what I'm all about. I mean, if there's some body found in the woods somewhere, I got to know all about it, So I don't think most people like listening to stuff like that. So I'm just kind of in my own thoughts. I hear the music in my mind and just kind of get up there and do the thing. Sometimes I turn on the music, but if I know Edie's working or if somebody's coming, I don't. But if I'm at home, then either the music or, another thing I was thinking about this, I like to watch people work because I used to co-work before the pandemic. So a lot of times you just see me watching YouTube videos of people handling, equipment and buildings. I really like watching old guys like turn bowls, like wooden bowls on lathes. I find that really compelling. And I've got a guy I watch that refinishes furniture. Really, it's like slow TV. I just watch him refinish things while I'm working. So I hear the noise of them working, and I find that comforting. A little bit of lots of things. Can you parse out whether the...
Libby says, can you parse out whether the noise helps your actual thinking and or the physical process?
Yes, the noise helps. Before cable TV, when I was in grad school, which was back in the 90s, I had a little tiny TV, one of the little ones that had the VCR in the bottom. You remember VCRs? And I used to watch talk shows all day long. Sally, Jesse Raphael, and then there was Oprah Winfrey, and then oh God, who came on after that? And then Ellen showed up. So there was like a big 3-hour block. And I think there was like court TV. So lots of talkie. And I love the talkie because it shuts down all the words that are going on. I got too many voices happening, you know, and they're not the good ones. They're the ones that say, are you sure what you're doing is worth it? Is that the way you're going to draw that line? Do you really like that color? I'm concerned about what your thinking is. You know, like that voice. To shut that down, I listen to talky things. And then if I have to do something repetitive, like let's say I'm doing a drawing that has literally thousands of lines, and I got to just sit there and choot for hours and hours and hours, I listen to something that is repetitive. Like I love the Goldberg variations. I think and I really by Bach, and I like. I particularly like Glenn Gould's performance of that. And I listen to that over and over again because it's just a variation on one melody over and over and over again. And it just gets me all kinds of gooey inside. And I'm able to continue to work without being interrupted by my own internal struggles, which is what always trips you up, you know?
We've had so many great questions.
We have. You guys have great questions. It really has been. We've had 3, this is the 3rd day of these, and these have been just super questions. Are there any more, please?
Heather, I have one more question for you.
Okay.
From Juliana Christie. She says, I'm struck by your description of this experience. Do you have any requests of us as witnesses and or the world at large?
Oh my goodness. Wow, that's a tall one. That's a tall order. Yes, I have a request. Yes, I do. I would request your participation. There are 2 projects that you can participate in here. One is the Handshake Project, and the other is How Do You Feel? And both of those pieces will not be created unless people help make them. The Handshake, let me tell you a little bit about each one. The Handshake Project was something I conceived of in that first month. When I lost the ability to give a handshake to somebody, I felt that pretty strongly. But I think even more so than the loss of the ability to hug my friends and family, the loss of a handshake has really, really deeply affected me. Because I see it as an agreement. It's weapons free. You know, you can't hold a gun or a knife at the same time you're holding somebody's hand. I love that. So it's non-threatening, and it's a form of agreement, a kind of alliance, a promise in some way. And I love that idea that we seal deals with a handshake, and I don't want that to go away. If there's things that I wish would come back to normal, that's one of them. Handshakes and hugs. I want both of those big time. So this project invites people to take a quick clip of them engaged in a handshake with another person. And there's some information about this on my website, heather-gordon.com. And there's information at greenhillnc.org as well. And I've left a little video up to show you how to do it. There's only a few rules, you know, it's just skin only. So up to here, you'll see an example video of how it's framed. You can shoot it on an iPhone, you know, it's very simple, straightforward. And then you can send it to me by email, like put it in a Dropbox folder or something and send it to me. Now, if you're local, you can come here to the gallery and we've got a video booth set up, and you can get in there with your pod partner and shake it up. And then all those video handshake clips are going to be compiled by myself. And you know, I guess I just want to see a lot of handshakes. I want to see people saying, you know, yeah, I like you. Let me shake your hand. I'm going to make an agreement with you. I'm going to be your ally. And I love that feeling. It gives me a good feeling. The second one, The second project is called How Do You Feel? And this one you can submit an answer to that question. How do you feel? And it's a short thing, 140 characters, like a tweet. It's kind of my anti-tweet for all the Trumpy goodness we had on Twitter. So answer the question, how do you feel? And then I take that answer and translate it into ASCII values and create a folding pattern for it. And then we've got these movable walls in here that are, about person size big. And they take me maybe an hour to tape them out. And so I'm gonna do 8 of those every 2 weeks. And then we can move the walls around. We could take them outside and put them on the street corner and interact with people walking by outside. I mean, it's just how many times has anybody asked you how you feel during this? Who wasn't your pod partner? How do you feel? You've lost your job. How do you feel? You've lost a loved one. How do you feel? You don't know how you're going to make money next year. How do you feel? You lost your house. How do you feel? There's a lot to be feeling about these days. And so I'm really interested to see, what the answers are. So please tell me, how do you feel? And then I will mirror that back to you in an image. Oh, yay. Juliana says that she will honor my requests. Okay. Woohoo!
I can't wait to see the tape walls, the small tape walls for the first one. I really can't wait to see the first
Yeah,
one.
I'm very excited about it too. It'll be the first time I'm able to do a bunch of tape things in rapid fire. Normally I think the hell out of them before I ever get here. But these are going to be like instant. They're going to be almost like sketches. And so I'm interested to see what sorts of innovations I might come up with for just the way my tape overlaps or the use of color. I get to try some things, like it's okay for me to fail. And so I'm going to try to fail and find something new in this opportunity, because every 2 weeks I'll get to do a whole other 8 more. And that's pretty great. I mean, so essentially it's 16 tape installations. There's little tiny mini ones. And that's kind of exciting. I've never had that opportunity before. It's a new way to work.
And to collaborate with someone you don't know.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Collaborating. Yeah, right. And it's really an image just for you. It's your image. It's not my feeling, it's your feeling. It's really, I think it's a way of validating and saying, I hear you, by then reflecting something back and saying, yeah, I know, I get it. And here's what it looks like in this way that I'm hearing it. Thank you, Juliana. Those are kind words there. Thank you. We are at the 2 o'clock hour, 2:01. I want to thank everybody for coming today. This has been really, really warm. I'm seeing people here that I haven't seen for a while, and that's, in my real life, and that's really great. So, like art brings people together right here at Green Hill. So thank you very much. Yes, please send unmuted applause. Oh my God, please do. Let's hear it.
And the exhibition will be opening March 12th.
Can we unmute them, Becca?
All right, I think you can unmute yourselves now.
Thank you, Heather. Yay! Thank you, Heather. Woohoo!
Thank you.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you, Heather.